Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to with Jisc Scotland 2016. I'm Jason Miles-Campbell, head of Jisc Scotland. I'm very proud to be here and welcome you on behalf of Jisc and in Jisc Scotland to what I hope is a very exciting and inspirational day, packed full of stuff. Of course, the truth of today will be on what happens afterwards, and so we'll keep a keen focus on trying to help you and support you in trying to do those great things that make further higher education wonderful in Scotland. Of course, as is the way, I should start off with the housekeeping things. In the event of a fire or other emergency, there are no tests, and so it's the exit there, the exits through the corridor by the toilets or out the front. One downside of technology, of course, is batteries. And if you are the owner of the Audi A3 black coloured SA15 KUX, your lights are on. And you might like to go and switch those off. There's all these junk reads, of course. So it's going quite packed. I'm not going to say too much, which for me is pretty unusual. Scotland, here we do an awful lot. I was very honoured to be asked to be a judge at the Herald Higher Education Awards recently, which meant going through many nominations for the good stuff that's going on in Scotland in higher education, both from colleges and from universities. And it was thrilling to see some of the innovation that was taking place, both in teaching and learning generally, but also in the application of technology. So there's three main things I think that we might look at in Scotland that we do particularly well, or particularly on the agenda. First, widening access and how we can get past the socio-economic barriers to further higher education. Secondly, developing the young workforce so that the college leaver is made vocationally ready by use, for example, of virtual reality simulation. So when they get to the workplace, they're primed for it. And the university graduate with the digital skills for digital business. Also, supporting of collaboration in Scotland, I think we're particularly strong on, through the simple but effective EduRoam, for example, and hopefully most of you have linked up to the EduRoam network here seamlessly. But to the complexities of research management at the other side when it comes to the big physics projects undertaken by some of our universities. So we want you to unleash the power of digital in teaching and learning, and that's what we're here for today, the transformative power of that. And that's down to you with the support of Jisc, and that's what we're here for. We very much value your time that you've taken to come here. We expect you to take away some ideas, and hopefully we support you to implement them afterwards. Today we'll give you some examples of the good practice that happens across the region, and so that's why we have many community speakers here today from the sectors in Scotland, and we thank all of those people who have agreed to talk, and hopefully they will excite and inspire you as the day goes on. You will hear from Jisc and sector experts. You'll see quite a lot of Jisc people, hands up today. We have quite a lot here. Please do make the most of talking to us. There's quite a lot of orange badges around, spot those. And hopefully leave with ideas and inspiration and insight. And it's how to make the most of our advice and guidance, our practical assistance, our sector deals and our shared services overall. I invite you to make connections as the day goes on. If you could ensure that your mobile phones are switched on, and use that would be fantastic. If you've got a dodgy ringtone, well, I'll let you consider that. But we use the hashtag ConnectMore16, and you can also link with @Jisc. There's also a Facebook page for you to use, and so if you make those links, all the better. So without any further ado, it's me going to introduce Tony Jakimciw. Who has been principal at Dumfries and Galloway College, amongst other education roles for quite a few years now. Good experience within that. There's three reasons that I wanted Tony to open this conference, apart from being just a generally inspirational speaker. First of all, his knowledge of further education, his knowledge of Scotland and education, and his knowledge of Jisc from his background are pretty unique and pretty special. Secondly, his realism. I was involved in the steering group of a blended learning project in the Borders colleges many years ago, And we had some great ideas for how blended learning could be taken forward. But I remember Tony turning up at one of the meetings and giving us a bit of realism, and that is that he was having trouble with one department moving them from blackboards, and I mean the chalk variety, to whiteboards, never mind onto the blended learning agenda. And so that was a salutary lesson. And thirdly, his focus on what technology can do rather than what technology is, because in the end it's about the student experience and experience for staff. That's enough for me, and with that I will pass you over to Tony.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. I don't know if this thing is on. Is it on?
Yeah.
Good. Well, that was very kind, a very nice introduction. I actually don't believe that's why Jason's invited me here at all. Most of you will be familiar with the phrase, a digital native. Well, you're in the presence here today of a digital native. I first started lecturing in 1975 at Gateshead College. And believe it or not, Gateshead College had an extensive learning technology-driven network which reached into every single department with loads of content for the learners to use. That technology was based on the Bandmaster. Yes, there's only one person who knows what a Bandmaster was. It's a spirit duplicator. A piece of paper with a carbon copy underneath, you write on it, you put the carbon on the roller and you turn it off, and hey-ho, it produces your handouts. They were in every single department. We had storage issues because the cupboards weren't big enough. We had access issues. First thing on a Monday morning, you tried to get to the Bandmaster to print your handouts out. You couldn't get to them. The one good thing about it was, if you had a good sniff of the spirit, you didn't give a damn about the lessons anyways. My first introduction to computing was through my principal at the time, Bill Hale, who came back from a residential and said, I've seen the future. The future is basic. Basic. Bill, within 1 month, had bought a room full of BBC computers, and every single academic member of staff undertook a course in basic. 18 months later, we got a computer in our teaching rooms. Still hadn't a clue what to do with it, or by that time anyways, I'd forgotten what basic was to start with. But those themes have been consistent throughout my long experience of ICT. It's about the people and their development. It's about the systems and resources that drive it, and it's about the content. And what I'd like to briefly do is do two things. One, from the perspective of a chair of a college, look at what I think are the challenges facing us and the opportunities. After
years, where I think we've got to with ICT and where we need to go. Interesting. So let's look at some of the challenges. This is the boring bit, but it's the important bit, and it's this. As you probably know, colleges have been reclassified as public bodies, so that we are now subject to the same rules as other government departments. The big issue for colleges is quite simply this. Whereas before colleges could keep their reserves and carry them forward from year to year, now we cannot. We cannot carry forward our reserves. Why does that matter to ICT? Because that's how we funded the development of the networks. The reserves that were earned through commercial activities were kept, and for example at Borders College, this year we will use up the last of those reserves on upgrading our network at a cost of about £500,000. But I can honestly say to you, I have not a clue, as the chair of that college, where the next £500,000 is going to come from, and we're going to need it. And that has a couple of big implications for us. For a start, we need to make sure that what we buy is the right stuff. It really does need to be future-proofed and fit for purpose as long as possible. And when I look around Scotland, there are lots of things that are good in terms of networks and systems. There's lots of things that need improving. But one of the things that we do need to do in all of this, and this is one of my big themes today, is collaborate more. If you want funding in the future for ICT networks, you are going to have to bid into the government. And you'll be in competition with every other public body, the police, SDE, Scottish Enterprise, all bid into the same pot. My view is quite simple. An individual college doesn't have a hope in hell of competing with that. But so far, as a sector, we have no presence in terms of ICT as a collaborative body. We need to work together as a sector to create the vision that would persuade the government to invest in this. It doesn't matter how good your college is, an individual college will not access that money. It's amazing, some of the stuff that's on the networks across your colleges. Some of the stuff is truly inspirational. Individual bits, learning objects, using everything from virtual reality to voice activation. I've seen a lot. I'm sure you have as well. But I think you'd also agree that it is very inconsistent. And our aspiration has to be, not that it's amazing, but actually it's a bit more like Amazon. Is that the expectation of our learners is that they have Amazon. That they do the minimum of input and get the maximum of output. But they're no different to us. We're no different to us. If you go on an internet site and want to book your holiday, and after 3 clicks you can't get the information that you want, you go somewhere else. Now, they may be captive prisoners at the moment, but they're not really captive prisoners, are they? They have choice. So we have to raise our game in terms of Amazon. And if you think about it, you want your complete transaction history in Amazon. You want to know what you've ordered. You want to be able to reorder it. Well, our learners want the same thing about their learning portfolio. They want to know what tests they've taken, what they were, when they took them, what the results were. And if you think about it, it's easier for you to switch bank accounts between organisations which were built to compete than it is for our learners to take their profile from one college to another. And yet, we don't actually talk about that a great deal at all. Our focus is usually internal. But you could ask yourself the question and ask your colleagues today, as you go around, how portable is the learning within your college? Because there are institutions, and I know I've just been speaking about a university colleague where they can't take information from one faculty to another. What will drive that change of creative collaboration is the learner journey. One of my responsibilities as a chair is to work with the Scottish Government in terms of the spending review. So that's the submission that we make every year for money for the sector. This year is for a 3-year spending review. So over the last few months, I've been working with government officials and recently met with the new Minister for Further and Higher Education to talk about their ambitions. And what was interesting is you may have seen in the press that they're reviewing Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Enterprise and the SFC, which will affect colleges. You may have seen in the press that they're looking at school corporate governance and they're looking at the impact of the school curriculum. But what is absolutely clear to me, that the biggest thing that they are looking at is the learner journey. And I mean the learner journey from school, through college, to university, and into the world of work. And their concerns, and they are expressed as concerns, is that there is too much duplication on that journey. There are too many learners who have to repeat things. There are too many systemic things that prevent learners from progressing. What they are looking for is a smooth transition through school, through college, through university to work as quickly and as effectively as possible. It goes beyond whether we should have a 1+2 model of articulation in university, college and university, or 2+2. I have no doubt, and this is a personal view, an entirely personal view, that this government intends to change the landscape to make that happen. And then you think of the implications of that for ICT. You think of that, the implications of that for a learner who wants to move smoothly between institutions and take their learning portfolio with them. Could they do that? Can they do that now? I doubt very much that that is the case. Can they take their learning experience? Is the way that they are learning in one institution or using ICT networks and BLEs, is it the same in one institution and another institution? Again, I doubt that very much. So what I think that we need to be looking at this point for the future is not just our individual colleges, but the sector landscape. And like many things, and I'm going to be perfectly honest here, it's usually people like you who understand the implications, not people like me. It's people like you who come up with the solutions, not people like me. It's my job to make those solutions happen. It's your job, in a sense, to advise how that should happen. So, in that learning journey, we have to also look at three other things. At the minute, policy is focused on 16 to 19-year-olds, which means that a lot of our networks are set up for 16 to 19-year-olds, teacher-mediated learning. What we need to look at are the needs of non-linear learners, adults, and ask yourself the question, could someone, an adult who's dipping in and out of education, really genuine benefit from your learning network? Secondly, it ain't going to happen unless we've got a unique learner ID. Somehow, whether it's through SQA or whether it's through anything else, we need something which identifies a learner throughout their learning life. And that's something, again, that we need to work together to do. And finally, in this area, we need to crack the issue of assessment. Not just being able to carry out assessments and validate those online, but to be able to carry that assessment record with them wherever they go. It's that transferability through the learner journey. I can't see this in here, so checking I'm on the right slide. Yeah. Repository or suppository. I sometimes wonder if our VLEs need a bit of clean out. In 1984, I just met Mark Owens after many, many years. We used to work together at Hartlepool College. I introduced something called, because there was lots of European money at that time. Remember European? Oh, we'll soon forget about European money, but anyways. Something called the Independent Learning Centre. We said it was the first in England. Nobody ever argues with you anyways, but it was. A room full of computers, full of content, staffed by administrators, was the idea that learners could come in and learn, and there wouldn't be the structured activity that a classroom was at that time. The only problem was that there was no content to put on it, and the staff didn't know how to use it. I reflect that was 32 years ago. It's only in the last few years, and I mean the last few years, that we have made significant progress as a sector. There is still a long way to go. And one of the problems that we have is that the networks are often structured for supporting the teacher-led learning activity. The lecturer mediates the process. That's great. There is nothing wrong with that. But what often does happen is that we have the noodle effect, not on our dynamic learning environment. We tend to reinvent wheels. I remember many years ago coming back with some Jisc content, which was about hairdressing, which in my view was absolutely superb. And the guy responsible for developing the material and putting it on the network came back and said, the hairdressers want to change change the material. And I said, well, fine. Let them do that. It's all about organic growth. Yeah, he said, but every single one of them wants to change it differently. So that we have 8 versions of the same learning material. That's what I mean about needing a suppository. Education has been slow to adopt the technologies. If you think about other industries and how they've changed, it's actually a disgrace in terms of education. And I used to have these arguments with industrialists when I used to do work down at the Jisc, who used to ask, how can we change our manufacturing processes and you can't even change education? And I used to have to try and explain to them, actually, you use machines. The process in education is the people. It's not a piece of machine. So I understand that it will be slow, but I think that one of the issues that we have is that we're still working as independent lecturers and not as collectives in terms of collaboration. And I would ask that one of the things that you do try and explore today is how you can collaborate, not just across your college, but with other colleges. So that we do need to, in a sense, re-engineer that process. I sound like a boring little kid, but in 1975, we had these learning objects. We called them textbooks. And we used to mediate them with these dynamic learning objects called handouts. The point I'm making is there was a core learning object which was then adapted for use by the lecturers through their mediation. The textbook was the standard thing. It was up to the lecturer on how they used them. What we're getting now sometimes is everything on the system is being tweaked for individual use. So enough about the challenges, let's just quickly look at some of the opportunities. As you can guess from what I'm saying is, in terms of sociology speak, I still think we're at the forming stage. And it's about time that as a sector we move to the norming stage. And one of the things that we really do need to do is get ahead of the curve. And that, in a sense, is the responsibility of people like me. We need a shared vision. There isn't a shared vision. If a minister came to the regional chairs and said, what's your shared vision for ICT in education? We couldn't answer that question. And that, to me, is a shame. But now is the time to do that. But what I don't want to happen, which is too easy, is for people like me to share a vision, and it's nothing to do with the vision that you've got. We have a Jisc vision, and I have to say that I think it's a very good vision. There's one or two things that I disagree with Jason, as you would expect. On a serious note, I think the emphasis is too much on it, or could be interpreted as individual colleges and not as a sector overall, and the dimension of what we need to do to put this thing together. But my biggest complaint is I want to know why FE gets 4 years to achieve its vision and HE gets 14 years. Because I think that's discriminatory. I know where the county sector, but that's just a bit too far. So, what can we do together? Well, as a sector, we can find the funding by pooling our talent. And by what I mean is that if we can get our act together, if we can actually describe to the government what it is that we want to achieve, we have a chance of bidding in for that money. That does not mean that every college has to do the same thing in the same way, but it means that we have to convince the government that we're all moving in the same direction to achieve the same objectives. We need collaboration strategies within our organisations and between our organisations, and to stop leaving everything to individuals to achieve. We need, in terms of the government is concerned, to grow, but they don't want to give us any more money. So we need to think about how we can use our virtual learning environments to achieve that. And we do that by increasing students, not by classes. And ensuring that our VLEs are able to be accessed by individual learners. We need to develop new markets. There is actually, in my own college, we're getting inquiries from some of the Gulf states about setting up their own vocational training. Very slowly, the developing world is coming around to realising the need for vocational education in their own places. We, as a sector, don't have the capacity. Universities may have the capacity to go and open up campuses in foreign lands. We don't have that capacity. But it's actually not university level training they're looking for. It's FE level training that they're looking for. But what we need to do is to respond to that by the use of ICT. Because that is something that can bridge those distances and which we can support. But again, it needs us to work together as a sector. We might, as Borders College, be able to work with one country, but the whole of the underdeveloped world is just a bit beyond our reach. We struggle to actually reach the people in Hawick, so Amman is a real challenge for us. But what actually developing that income does is produce match funding for us, so that we can use that income as a sector to actually access some of the really big money. And if we are still in the European Union, the game has changed. It used to be that your college could bid and get match funding for your college. Those pools of money don't exist. If you want to get match funding for ICT, it has to be for the whole of Scottish further education. They're the rules of the game. And finally, we need to do what I said, is to maximise the output and minimise the input. There is still too much dependency on individual lecturers. And I could imagine listening to me ramble on what needs to be done, you thinking, I've got enough to play God do, because I have to do all that as well. And that's absolutely true. So we need to think about in colleges, how do we do that? It's easy to talk about collaboration, but your timetable dictates that you can't. It's easy to talk about changing things, but if you haven't got the right development, we can't. So, in conclusion, what I hope you get out of today is the opportunity to share your knowledge and your skills, which you undoubtedly have, to enjoy yourselves, but I hope that you'll also explore the possibility and challenges of collaboration in institutions and between institutions in a way that's going to facilitate that learner journey. Thank you.
Just a few words before we head off into the breakout sessions here. Thank you very much for that. Certainly collaboration, a very common theme there. I have a vested interest in us moving on the baseline. My stepson's about to head off to a Scottish college after filling in many different application forms for many different colleges. And my stepdaughter's at Scottish University studying. So I'm all in favour of raising the baseline. You are the special ones, you're the chosen ones by being here. The question is how we can all take forward the baseline of technology-enhanced learning in Scottish further and higher education. And as Tony says, you come up with ideas and you'll make it happen. Thank you. Paraphrase. Just explore and discover. I've said here we're going to have a Digi lab set up. Unfortunately, a bit of technology called TNT couriers let us down slightly, but it has arrived and will be set up in time for after the first sessions over here. So look forward to some hands-on, flashy stuff. An interesting thing is when we chose this venue because that looks rather fantastic in the back view of Wallace Monument. This room isn't perfect and we're not going to be holding the breakout sessions here. In terms of this, one of the things that I would like for us to achieve, we have managed to do in time here, is I bet every one of you, I bet there's not a person here without a screen next to them, whether it's in their back pocket or on the table. In fact, we won't have a game as to who's got the most screens with them. But why are we all looking at these monitors against the backdrop of there rather than the slides down in front of us? We'll move that technology on at some point. But explore. Connect with us during the day. I want to hear your ideas as the day goes on. I'd love to leave here having spoken to all of you for some time, and it's with all the Jisc people who are around about today. Keep in touch with us. I'm not going to go through the slide more, but we've got a Facebook page, we've got Twitter. Please do the online getting together. And with that, we're on to the critical issues session. So there's 3 parallel sessions. Leveraging change through digital capability, room 1.18. How you can enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of teaching and learning, room 1.19. And implementing analytics, 1.20. Those rooms are upstairs at the back of the restaurant, and am I right in saying we're in both ways? Is that right? No, this way, beg your pardon. And up the stairs will take you to the breakout rooms. Enjoy your day, hope to speak to you, be inspired. Thank you.